Hello and welcome back to Hal TV. Today we are looking at the Blackberry Curve 9320, and this particular video is the video review. If you want the unboxing, there will be an annotation somewhere around now and possibly throughout the whole of the video. And if you want the written review, the link will be in the description box below, and that will be right at the top. So I'm going to start off with the specification of this particular phone, because you know that's the most important thing to go through before you start talking about the design and the performance aspects of the phone. So to start off with, it's got a height of 109mm, so that's top to bottom, and a width of 60mm. It has a thickness of 12.7mm, but to be quite honest, I think the size isn't really that big an issue unless it's too big to hold in your hands, and then that gets brought up under the design aspects. The biggest feature that I think is the most important feature on this phone is the OS, and it comes with the OS 7.1, so that's the brand new operating system by Blackberry. Other than that, in terms of technical specs, it's got an 800 MHz processor, 500 MB RAM, and 500 MB memory for storage of your applications, photos, videos, etc. Other than that, it does also feature expandable memory up to 32 gig via micro SD. Other features: it's got a 3.2 megapixel camera with flash. I will talk about that more under the design aspects. Other features: QWERTY keyboard, the same basic features that you get on all Blackberry phones really nowadays. It still has the 2.44 inch screen, and that is 320 by 240 in terms of resolution, so that gives it a 164 pixels per inch. Other than that, everything is pretty much the same with this phone compared to other Blackberry devices, so let's get on to the design aspects of this phone. So moving on to the design part of this video review, I would like to say to start off with that there is a screen protector on it at the moment, which is why you can sort of see the fingerprints, and that's because the screen protector is a lot harder to wipe fingerprints off than the actual screen. The actual screen is quite easy to wipe fingerprints off, which I was quite impressed by, and I suppose that's a good part of the design. So in terms of this phone, I mean, it features a lot of the same things that most Blackberries do. So the basic QWERTY keyboard, the basic 5 buttons. For this one, they're all individual buttons, and you've also got the trackpad as well as that button there as well. Speaker grill and LED indicator in their usual positions. Now, what I do want to say before I move on is this silver sort of surrounded on the front of the phone, as you can see very sort of clearly, there is a big sort of scratch there, and that was, I suppose, clumsiness on my part, but at the same time, one thing about this silver bit is the type of plastic that's been used is a lot softer and it's a lot more easier to damage than, for example, this battery cover, which is a lot more of a harder, glossier plastic. Now you'd say, well, yeah, it's glossier, it's easier to scratch, but because it's a hard plastic, it's a lot harder to damage further than a scratch, which this softer plastic, obviously you can see, is a lot easier to damage more. So moving on from the front of the phone, on the left hand side you've got a function button which has been labelled BBM, and it does come as BBM as standard, but you can change that to whatever you want in the options. Micro USB slot there, and a lanyard port. On the right hand side you have your normal volume up and down switch, but in between them on this one you've got a play pause button. Now, I didn't particularly like this. I do like that it's there. I think it's a good place to have it, but the key itself, it looks very sort of added on at the end. It doesn't look like it was there in the main design, it's almost like they forgot to put one on, and then they were like, oh, we need to put one on, let's just shove it there. And then of course you've got your camera button there as well, which again you can change to whatever you want. On the bottom you've got your speaker grill, that's where your speaker is, and your microphone port. Now some people won't like having the speaker on the bottom, sorry, but personally I think it is a good idea, as if you're using the speaker in a phone call, it makes it easier because the microphone and the speaker are both directed at you, so you don't have one shooting off in the other direction while the other is trying to pick up noise from the opposite. On the top you've got a screen lock, keyboard lock switch there, which I do like, and your headphone jack. And then on the back you have a sort of enlarged rim Blackberry logo, your 3.2 megapixel camera and its flash. Now the battery cover is a sort of, it's a slide off instead of a clip off, but I suppose I'll try and I'll do it now. I did like this idea, as the 8520 that I've had before, I was clipping it open and it would get to a point where I know that I would have damaged it, whereas this, it sort of stays on and you don't really mess around with it. So that's what it looks like on the inside. You've got your micro SD card up at the top. You've got your battery, which is the same battery as they use in for example, the Bold series that I've used personally. So yeah, let's move further on into the design. What I forgot to mention about the camera was its features. So it comes with extended depth of field, 4 times digital zoom, geotagging and image stabilization, which I can tell you for now, in terms of performance, before you even get on, performance of the camera is a lot better than the 8000 series of cameras. Now in terms of design, like I said at the start, one of the biggest things for me is the operating system, and this for me definitely brings up the value of the phone like nothing else. So you know, it really takes advantage of the trackpad. You don't need a touchscreen to use this operating system effectively. You know, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do with it, and it for me it makes the phone, everything about the Curve series was sort of that they aren't as good as the Bold series, but they still feature the functionality. And for me, I'm starting to think, are the functions, are the features of the Bold series, are the more expensive phones even worth paying the money for? For example, they have a better camera, they have a touchscreen. Is it worth it? Because I could go out and buy a better camera than that's on the Bold phones, and buy this phone and probably spend around the same price. And do you need the touchscreen? I know a lot of people who have the more expensive phone who don't even use the touchscreen, because it's pointless when you have the trackpad. So really, for me, this phone, when it comes to value, is about as high as it gets for a Blackberry. Now, before we move on to performance, I did mention that the silver sort of, you could say, bezel of this phone is a lot easier to damage than the other plastics used on this phone. Now, what I went out and did was buy a case for the phone, and I will do an overview maybe at some point of this this phone cover. It's a sort of hybrid silicone hard plastic cover, and it does look good, it looks nice, and it obviously protects the phone. So I will do an overview and I maybe link this into the video at some point. So let's move on to performance now. So moving on to the performance aspects of this Blackberry Curve, and yes, I have put the case back on because I do not want to risk it. So yeah, moving on to the performance aspects, you would think, well, it's a curve, it's the sort of cheaper range of phones compared to the bold that BlackBerry do. You would think, well, it does have the new OS 7.1 on, so there must be something wrong, something that means that this curve can't do as much as, say, the bold can do, or if it works rubbish with the OS. And the truth is, no, and slightly yes, but to the point where it doesn't even matter. For example, loading videos on YouTube, for example, using the internet, it slightly lags sometimes, but for the most part, I don't notice it, and I have a lot more patience when using, for example, 3G and stuff and Wi-Fi on my phone. I have a lot more patience because I expect it to be slower than my computer. So if you're the type of person who expects it to be as fast as your computer at home or your desktop, your work computer, you probably will be disappointed, but then you might as well be disappointed with every phone on the market at the moment. And yes, sometimes if you try and do too many things at once, for example, you try and open the camera, take a picture and close it all at like open the camera application and take a picture while trying to close it and do something else. Yes, it is going to stall. It doesn't completely crash to the point where you have to turn your phone off and on again. It stalls for a few seconds, kind of tries to figure out what's going on, and then it catches up. So sometimes, yes, you will notice some sort of delay at some points, but for the most part, it's perfectly fine. It runs fluidly. It's not as if the sliding functions on the OS 7.1 look unsmooth or whatever. Everything seems to run smooth, other than the times when you try and do too many things at once. But yeah, other than that, I don't notice any issue with this phone, with using this phone at all. I can't really fault it. I mean, it's got 7.1, OS 7.1. It's got all the updated features. It is a lot better than the old 8000 series BlackBerry curves. And yeah, if you're looking for a cheap phone that's not going to feature an 8 megapixel camera, blah blah blah, it's definitely a good phone to pick. So I'm not going to really get onto the conclusion right this second, because I am still on the performance aspect of this video. So yeah, I will move on to the conclusion now and tell you what I think about this phone. So my conclusion to do with this phone is very similar to what I've just said. I think it's a very nice phone. It's marketed very well. I mean, I personally think that the value for this phone is really high. It looks good. It's got new features, like for example, the old phone featured a tiny camera without a flash. I'm referring to the 8520 here. It featured the cheap looking plastics, like horrible plastics. Just nothing seemed to look good with the phone compared to the bold. That's where the bolds seem to be a lot higher. For example, you know, with the curves, you'd get all the good features that you would get out of BlackBerries, which is what made them good and what made them marketable to that area of the market. And with the bolds, it was a lot more about style, looks, getting all the high-end features while still having that sort of BlackBerry interface. With this is a new update. This is where they've sort of thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the phone look good, have all the good features, not as high-end, but still good features, and keep it in the same area of the market, keep it in that sort of the cheaper mid-range area of the market. You know, you're not going to find a BlackBerry on the market for £50 or whatever, but with these curves, they are bringing it in the mid-range market phones while still having all the good features that you would get on other phones in that area. So yeah, if you are gonna buy a BlackBerry and use the functionality of a BlackBerry phone, such as the email, such as BBM, I suppose, this is definitely a good phone to get, because it has all of that and it looks good, and it's overall it's a good package. So yeah, I can't fault this that much. So let's wrap things up. So there we have it. That is the review of the BlackBerry Curve 9 320. If you want the unboxing or the written review, the unboxing will be in an annotation somewhere, as I said at the start of the video, and the written review will be in the description box below, linked. If you haven't already, don't forget to head over to the website. There's a lot of content on there that is not featured anywhere else on the Hal Tech TV sort of network area, and if you haven't already, don't forget to bookmark that on your web browser for future use. If you have any questions or written requests, don't ask me on the YouTube comment section. I don't particularly like answering there, and don't send me messages or whatever. They generally won't get answered. If you have any questions or you want a product review, use the submission box on the website, as you will get your answers directly to you via email. Or if it is a general question, what I will do is I will make a video about it, and that will be featured on the other channel, and I will then link you that video, so you get this sort of personal answer, but for everybody to be able to see. If you have any business, contact me via the email in the description box below. It's also on the channel page and on the website. That is the business email. Don't contact me via that for any other reason. If you have questions, like I said, use the submission box on the website. All the links are in the description box below for everything I've just said, and that's about it. This has been a Hal Tech TV video. Don't forget to subscribe. Do everything that I asked you to do just before, and goodbye.